The Farrin family is basically was connected with the water through lobster and trapping.
So is that what your father did?
No, no. My father actually worked for the U.S. government in fisheries.
Yeah.
He was a technician in East Orland at the fish hatchery down there, raising the, salmon and
Right.
and all that. So,
Yeah.
So that's where that.
So did you go up there, or did he live up there?
He lived there for 6, 7 years. Yeah, and then he went from there down to Boston, and he worked with the committee that actually put the foundation in for the aquarium, New
Right.
England Aquarium, and from there he came back up to Maine and retired.
So what got you to the water? I mean, you grew up here in town.
Right, yes I did, yeah. And my uncle, which I spent most of my life with, aunt and uncle, they had a lobster pound right there in South Bristol Harbor.
Right.
So I actually was within 150 feet of the water most of my life.
Yeah. So what did you start doing?
I worked with, through high school, I worked at his lobster pound, and then once I graduated, jobs were very, very tight. I worked for a fellow up here in Walpole that built wooden bird feeders, bird houses, and packaged bird seed.
Now, was that where you got your first introduction to building stuff with wood?
Basically it was, yes. Yeah.
Now, who was your uncle and aunt?
Anthony Ugly was just naturally my uncle, and Charlotte was my aunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so from there, you went from...
All right. I went from there, from the small business here in Walpole. I went from there to Alex Ropes, which is in South Bristol. He had a small storage yard, and we helped, we had 6 or 7 boats at the time, and I worked there from, say, April through July, August, and then that was becoming slow, so I flipped the coin. I had a choice to go building houses with my Uncle Mac's house, or I had a chance to go to Gamages. So I flipped the coin, and it came up that I went to Gamages.
So what year would that have been?
Excuse me?
What year would that have been when you went to Gamages?
62.
Yeah.
Yeah, 62, 3, yeah.
And so what was it like to work for Harvey?
He was a great guy to work with. He expected a lot of work for the amount of pay we made. Right. And but it was a good area to work in. The first boat that I was a greenhorn, but the first boat I actually helped on was a Jane and Ursula, 125-foot scalloper.
They went to
New Bedford.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Gamage was building the Shenandoah.
Yep.
And I helped put some of the stern circle together with one of the guys.
So that's where you learned most of your woodworking?
At Gamages, yes. I learned, that's where I learned all my basic skills.
Now, who were some of the guys that taught you?
Caulking was Les Thompson. Merritt Francis was in the joiner shop. Earl Haley, he was on the planking crew. And that. Don Sigler, one of the son-in-laws. I worked with Don for almost 8 years. We did all the deck framing, laid the decks, built stern circles, put stanchions in, built some of the whalebacks. Mm-hmm. And then Earl Wright, Eddie Gamage was still there. Eddie was in charge of the metal fabrications, and Earl Wright was in charge of all plumbing, all that type. And then there's various, you know, many other guys there.
So what other boats did you work on that were there that are notable boats?
I worked on like 25 boats while I was there, but the notable ones, the Shenandoah, the Clearwater, Bill of Rights, those, you know, the schooners,
right.
and then we helped build a wooden dragger for the O'Hara Corporation, the Araho, the old wooden one, and then we built a lot of the, of course, Eastern rig ground fishers and scallopers while I was there.
Right.
So, yeah.
And so you left what year?
I left there in the end of 70.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you went to?
I went on my own.
Right.
Yeah.
So you went across the harbor?
I went across the harbor, and that's where I built my the first lobster boat that I built is that one there in that picture there, 36. One of the Beale designs, 36-foot lobster boat.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. We put her together, and she was ready to go fishing for $13,000.
Now you can't get what? You can't get anything for $13,000 in a boat.
No, it cost that much just to open the door. So,
so who was with you when you went out on your own? You must have had help.
I did. I had my wife, Judith.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How long she worked with you?
She was with in and out of the business for over 16 years.
Yeah?
Yeah. From the day one, if I needed an extra hand, my wife was right there.
Yeah.
We built five wooden boats out of the old shop in South Bristol, down New Orleans Highlands, until the blizzard of '78 in February. We basically lost everything there, and we moved up here.
So tell me about the blizzard of '78. Basically, your shop got raised?
We had extremely cold weather that year. In January, we were flooded. I was building a 33-foot wooden little sport boat for a fellow down on Long Island. We had the high run tides. Actually, I had over 4 feet of water in my shop. It floated the partially planked boat that I was doing, dropped it off sideways. Anyway, my wife and I had help then. Eddie Sims was helping me. And we cleaned it up, got the boat straightened up, just got ready to go again. February, we had a lot of ice in the harbor. We had a lot of pack ice under the building. When the storm finally hit, February 17th, I think it was, 14th or 17th. High run tide, well anyway, the ice floated the building, took it about halfway, the length of the boat, into the harbor, halfway sideways, and dumped it. So that was the end of building boats at that point, down in that building.
So you lost everything, because all your tools were in there.
Yeah.
Did the boat get saved?
The boat, actually, the insurance company bought it, or paid off on the owner. And they floated it over to Gamage's, and Linwood Gamage bought it and finished it.
Right.
Yeah, and that, while in that process, Judith and I came up here and we were working on building the first shop. Mm-hmm. And one of our good friends saw to it that I had a loan of $4,000, and we decided that that's the way we were going to go, and that's where it went. So.
And when you first started, it was just the building on the out end.
The gambrel roof building, yes.
Right.
The barn shed.
And what year was that when you moved in?
That was, we started building the foundation went in April. We put the building up. and by, say, June, we had the building up, and I had laid the keel for a 32-foot lobster boat for Francis Siders in South Bristol, RPJJ, which is still going.
Yeah.
And we launched her in, I think, November.
Of 78.
So, 78.
Yeah. So
and
you were back and running within 3 months.
Basically, yes. Yeah. And we had Fred Bates was a good friend of mine. Fred Bates, a marine designer. He actually designed the building for us. Bob Woodard, because he was treasurer down for Gamage, bookkeeper. He was very influential in obtaining local loans at the bank, and that was a great help. He had a lot
of fun doing that for Gamage, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Yes, very much so. Yeah. And so that all worked out. But so then that's the way it started.
So how many wooden boats did you build before somebody got you to switch to glass?
We built 12 wooden large boats,
right?
You know, lobster boats, 33 to 38, 36 feet.
Here?
Yes.
Yeah. And 7 at the other place?
And down, yes. Yeah. And then, let's see, 82 or 3, Stuart Poland came in and wanted a 37 RPJ, 37 Repco.
Right.
RP, I was going to say. He wanted a lobster boat built, and so I signed a contract with Stuart, and I went down and saw Harold and so forth down at Repco. And
Harold Lothrop.
Yeah. And Harold and what was his, Vern, was his partner?
Yeah, there was 3 of them.
Yeah. And they were very helpful. I went down there, and they put a kit together, a couple barrels of resin, materials, and whatever, and trucked it up here, and we put it in the front shop.
Right. And
we put that together. So one thing that all transpired while we were up here building our shop and everything. I built actually the main floor bay in the shop at the height of a contractor's heavy equipment trailer, so that we could roll our boats out onto that, take it to wherever, and roll it off and launch it. But while I was building RPJJ, Bob Sylvia came in town with a Brownell trailer. And so the first couple of boats, I had to take them out of the shop in a cradle, take them out of the cradle, put them aboard him, then we'd go to Pemmican and launch them over at the Restoration.
Right.
And but since then, down in South Bristol, we have a town launching ramp there, and Gamage with the travel lifts now. That's our main launching site, is Gamage's.
Yeah.
So. He made a circle. Yeah.
So over the years, you've done a lot of fiberglass boats.
Yes. Offhand, I can't tell you how many, but we're averaging 2 or 3 a year.
Right.
Yeah. One year, I was foolish enough to hire enough subcontractors. My wife was agreeable to do the books. We built 7 boats. We built 7 boats, and I swore I'd never do it again.
And you haven't?
And I haven't, no. Now we're back to reality, and
yeah.
And as I tell the crew, if it's worthwhile to build, it's worthwhile doing as best we can correctly. So yeah. That's the way it goes.
So was there a big learning curve in that first boat, that first fiberglass boat?
Definitely was. No respirators, no dust masks, hardly used bandanas.
Right.
That was all taboo. You didn't wear that sissy stuff back then. And yeah, I would go home covered with dust and basically, disrobe outside.
Yeah.
Thank God for woods. And I'd go through the basement and put the laundry in the washer and and then head for the
You're
shower.
allowed to get upstairs.
Yeah, be like a dog, have to shake, you know. But, yeah. But,
So there was a learning curve. But who was there? Somebody here that had done glass boats before, besides?
They on a very, very small scale, but I was basically the first one in town to do the fiberglass boat. But I should back up. When we were doing the Hero research vessel for the National Science Foundation, they had a Coast Guard rescue little boat that they purchased, and they were doing it for their whale research. And when it was finally done, it was all highly insulated. They had all the underwater recording systems for the sound. But the boat, that little rescue boat, had a hard chine. So Bill Rice and I, not knowing much about fiberglass, we had to cut the chine out, make it a soft bilge boat, and glass it all together and put it back together, you know. And she was the tender as well as research for the Hero, and she went to the Antarctic. So
now, Bill Rice would be from the Rice brothers, right?
No, Bill Rice, local in town, South Bristol Rice.
Yeah.
He was Harvey's son-in-law.
So he had worked at the shipyard too?
Yes. Yeah. He'd been there most all his life.
But the shipyard never did much in glass, did they?
No. Just, that was the first. Well, we used to lay, you know, what they call the fine boat cloth on top of some of the cabin tops and things like that. But back when I was there, we still put wooden dories on pilot houses for
the eastern rigs.
Yeah. So that it, you know, things have evolved a lot. But in my career, you know, RP Boats, Harold and his crew were very helpful in helping me out with the construction of the fiberglass boats.
Right.
Young Brothers, they always.
A lot of Young Brothers house.
We did the 33s, 35s, 40s, and yeah, the Arvid and Arvin and Colby were all very helpful. Matter of fact, I walked in them one day and I asked them, how do you get this finish on the interior of your boats? And I said, you roll it all on? Well, Arvin kind of snickered and kind of walked over, and I don't know what, had a little conference, and then they came back and said, Bruce, we've got to educate you. We use a cup gun. So they use actually a spray gun to spray their gel coats, and so they did very well. And then, you know, down at Blue Hill Marine, everybody did whatever they could. We've done South Shores. We did all the Blue Hills, David McGraw's.
Oh yeah, okay.
BHM's.
Yeah.
The fastest little boat in the harbor. Yeah. We did his. We did a lot of the 32s and the 31s, and did 2 of the 39s. So you know, basically, if they hadn't been so openly minded that I was going to be competition or whatever, but they didn't look at it that way because I was buying the kits. And
you never wanted a mold?
No, because they were out there.
Right.
Everything I always felt I could use the monies to better our finishing projects than it was to become highly competitive with hulls that are already out there. Yeah, it'd been nice to have Farrin and Son, you know, logos on the side of a boat, but we still do it.
Right, exactly.
And so we give credit to the production builders, and they give credit to us. So, yeah.
So today you've used almost everybody, haven't you? You've done Wayne Beals, you've done Muscle Ridge, you got 2 here right now.
Right.
You've done Calvin's.
Yeah, we've done Calvin's. We did the cutty hunks out of down on the Cape. We did a couple of those. Yeah, I mean, it goes. The only ones that wouldn't talk to me was Weber. Not Weber. Yeah, Weber boats. No, I'm trying to think. Right down there in Southwest Harbor.
Noonan.
Noonans were very, very helpful. But anyway, there was only one, you know, of course, naturally Hinckley's. They protect their names. Yeah, you know, any of the larger ones, they would be foolish. It would be not to their advantage to put them in a small shop.
But you finished off at Newman Hull.
Yes, we did. Yeah, and actually.
How about a Stanley?
No Stanleys. No, and but no, we've covered the.
You've covered most of the coast.
We have. Yes. Yeah.
And today you've got in the shop, you've got in this bay here, when did you build this bay?
This bay was back in the early 80s. We had a contract with Peterson Custom Yachts to build a wooden 40-foot trawler yacht for a U.S. citizen that lived in England. And he had us build that, and he would come back over and go cruising out of Wayfair, and so we built this building for that project.
Right.
And then it kept going from there. So
when did you build the next building out back?
That building was actually started by one of my employees. He was rebuilding a 46-foot an old Chris Craft sedan cruiser for his brother-in-law. Yeah. So he put up a 2x4 wooden frame, and we put white heat shrink on it, and we heat shrink the outer skin. Right. And he did that project. And being a little Scotch-Irish, I said, we can't be tearing that down, so we reframed it and put a metal roof on it and siding, and kept going, and now it's all insulated, heat in there, and then we put the wings on for more working area 4 years ago. Yeah. So, yeah.
So what you got going now is that you've got a 46 in this bay, in the new bay?
Yes, we have a 46 sport fisherman family cruiser headed for Ventura, California, which is number 13 in that Santa Barbara area, Ventura area. We recently, last summer, we put a 36-foot Wayne Beale, one of our high-end yacht finishes out there in that same area. It'll be out more down Long Beach area. This one here is going, like I said, to Ventura.
Now this is a pretty fancy boat, full interior.
Yes.
But it's also going to be used commercially.
This is a commercial adventure. The gentleman, he's a younger man. He eventually wants to retire and become a commercial fisherman. He already has shrimp, crab, lobster permits for this boat. Right. For right there in that area. He's expanded a bit, and he has several permits up in Washington State for shrimp and salmon and whatever. So
now this boat's close to being finished, probably what, another 3 months at the most?
Yeah, we hope they'll be both the 42 and this one ready to sail at least by June. Right. So, and then so
because the one out forward, where's she going?
That one is going to Cape May, New Jersey. Yeah. That is it's more of a sport boat for the owner. He actually owns several large boats in Cape May.
He's a commercial fisherman, right?
Yes, he is. Yeah. He has a fleet of scallopers and ground fishing. And, right. Yeah. And So he will use that for his own pleasure, although I think he may take six-pack type parties out.
Right.
But that's all commercialized it will be. So, yeah.
And so they're both Muscle Ridge hulls.
Yes.
And what are they powered with? The 46 has got a...
That's a C18, the 1150 horsepower.
Yeah.
That has a twin disc gear on it, electronic controlled. The 46 has a C18 with a ZF gear with electronic controls, of course.
Yep.
The 46 has a Seakeeper gyro for stability, stern and bow thrusters, hydraulic. So she's well outfitted for the fishery.
Yeah. And I hear the owner's been here once.
The owner was able to get across once.
I hear he was a little shocked.
He was a little bit awestruck, as he might say, exactly what he wanted, but it might have been in a bigger wrapper than he expected. Yes, yeah. So, no, very nice. He's trying to get back. He's very busy businessman. He has places, satellite divisions of his company, one of them in Rochester, and he's hoping within the next couple of weeks to be able to come there and then jump over here.
Right.
So.
And he's also going to keep it on the coast for a little while here, I heard.
We tried to have our folks from away stay a couple of weeks local. Yeah. That way we can, do the sea trials. They become familiar with the systems. It's more of a training way of doing it, and it helps out a lot. The 36-footer that we did, they jumped aboard after excuse me, a couple of 3 days at the dock. They went from here down into Rhode Island. They had friends down there. They stayed down there for a few days, came back up here, went down east a bit, I think they only went Ferris Rockland, came back through, and after 2 weeks they flew home, and then they left it down at Wayfair for a couple of 3 weeks, and then they had it shipped overland.
Now this boat, how is he getting it to California? Is he taking it down on their own bottom?
He would like to be able to take his family and go down around Florida, over into the Gulf, and over into Texas and put it on a truck.
Right.
But that's not going to materialize. So now he's thinking of maybe be able to get down to the Carolinas.
Right, and then
ship it from there. Yeah. Back to one of our boats we built for a businessman, or actually a lawyer, attorney, from Toronto, Canada, and he came down a couple of times, visited his boat. We took him down, had sea trials, stayed there for the weekend. He and his wife went aboard, stayed aboard, and they went from here to New York City, down through the East River, made the circle, came back up through, checked in. We had a couple of screwdriver adjustments to make, whatever. Went from there. They cruised down east, stopped down in Stonington, whatever, and then they went up into one of the large bays up to Nova Scotia, and then turned and went up the St. Lawrence, or down the St. Lawrence, whichever, and they went all the way down through into Toronto and went into their slip there. So so that worked out very well, and so that.
So one of the more interesting things is you've got another generation in here working. You've got two sons working in here. When did the first one would have been Brian, right?
Bruce is the older. Brian,
yeah, but Bruce came after, right?
Yes, yeah.
Brian was the first one to come in.
Yes, Brian, you know, they went off to school, and then they came back, went to, they didn't want to come exactly straight into the shop, so...
and they worked in here when they were kids?
They do. There's a picture of them on the wall over there, standing on the first wooden lobster boat.
Yeah.
Just hanging over the rail.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually at 3, 4, 5 years old, when they could get around under the boats, they would carry clamps. They would carry all my tools. They'd bring those over, and while we were working, Judith on the wooden boats would do a lot of the plugging of the planks. They would be over, I'd give them a bucket of nails and a pile of boards, and they would start pounding nails and building stuff. Yeah, they did. They came back into it. Bruce was into soil sciences for a while, helped establish work on the project up there in Quechee, Vermont, when they set up the high-end golf course up there. Came back here. He was the superintendent up here at Warnock. They painted houses for his one of his friends, as well as Brian.
Yeah. Both
of them painted houses for a while, and then they decided that they might like to come back, and that's when they did. So.
Yep. And they've been a big help.
They have. They've. It certainly has, because now I do what I basically despise most, is order and pay bills and make sure the checkbook has some funds in it.
Right.
And but Brian is the foreman, or the guy in charge in the front shop. Bruce is in charge of the back shop. Eric Runyon, he's been with us for 20 years.
Yeah.
Then Gabe Shaddis, he's been with us for, I think, 12 years. And then we've had different ones in and out, but we've been very fortunate. I haven't had a lot of success in advertising in papers for help. Word of mouth gets out that we're looking for help, and that's where most of ours comes.
Right.
And the guys come here because they want to work. They're not strictly for the money.
Right.
The money helps draw it in, like I said. But, yeah. But no, they're a very loyal crew.
Right. So how many have you got now here?
Right now, excuse me, I have 8.
Yeah.
8 people, yeah.
So 4 on a boat?
4 on a boat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prior to that, about a year ago, we had 3 or 4 projects going, and we had 1 guy per project. But that one man is not a good crew. So, but that didn't last long. And we accomplished, and we're very fortunate that we have in the commercial side of it, lobster boats, the guys that having the jobs done back when we were a little bit lax on help, they pitched right in. Mm-hmm. And a couple occasions during the winter months, we've actually hired some of the boat owners to work on their own boats. Mm-hmm. So it works out.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And they, one of the great things that they've expressed to Brian and Bruce is, by us letting them work on their own boats, they know their systems, and they know if something happens offshore, they at least know where to look. Right. So that's a great asset. It
is a big asset.
Yes, definitely.
They all should know how to fix it.
Exactly, yes, yeah. So,
you know? So what's coming up next after these 2 leave the shop?
Right now, we have a contract with the state of Maine for the second 42-foot Marine Patrol boat.
So that's going to be your Calvin hull?
That's the 42-foot Calvin, yeah. And the hull now is actually stored down at the Marine Patrol service area in Rockland. Yep. She's all ready to come in. I have the propulsion system out here. I have the hydraulic system already here. The chemicals are here. A lot of them came in yesterday.
Yeah.
That's one heck of a shocker. Yeah. It doesn't seem to be ending, that's for sure. But so anyway, we have that patrol boat. Colonel Talbot with the Marine Patrol. He's in charge of the project, yeah. As well as his other patrol officers and captains of the other boats. They will be coming in occasionally too. Yep. So I've found that it's been. I was very hesitant when we bid on the first one, but it's worked out very, very well.
Yeah.
So
what other one have you got?
Then, thanks to the wind projects and the whale people, we lost 2 42-foot lobster boat contracts. Yeah. Right now we have the patrol boat, and we're fortunate for that. One of the fellows that did cancel the new boat, and we're bringing in a 35-foot lobster boat that we built for his father, and so we're going to repower that, go through the hydraulics, electrical, make sure it's up to ABYC, so that will be good. I have 2 very good prospects for boats from away again. Yeah. That I'm quite sure they're going to develop, right. At least one of them. So, yeah. So we're doing, I think, extremely well as for the climate of the world. You know? Yeah.
Now, one thing that we really didn't talk about, but you briefly touched on it, was you've done a lot of repair work over the years.
We do, and
it's mostly commercial, isn't it?
Yes, mostly commercial, although one of our pet projects was the 36 Newman. That was the service boat for the Central Maine Power Company. We took that, as they call it, their on-the-water truck, and we built her into a nice bass boat configuration little cruiser for a family. Yep. And been very successful as far as wherever it goes. People remark on, you know, how it transpired from a very beat up but well taken care of, but right. Well used, I should say, yep. Hull, and made it into a nice little boat for them. Yep. So, yeah.
But you do a lot of repairs in lobster boats, repowers, all kinds of things, keeping them all going through the summer.
We do, and my outlook on that is, even though I'm doing the new work, if somebody comes along that we can work it in, I usually take it on, because my crew learns from repairing how to better our jobs, right. And they've always said that that's been a tremendous help. Yep. And you know, sometimes you know, they don't particularly care for the dead fish smell and all that, but we clean them up. And I did rebuilt my uncle's 30-foot RP. We pulled up the deck on her, and we found almost half a bushel of pogies under the deck. so you never know what you might find.
No, you didn't want to find it either.
No, but we knew it was there well before. Yeah. Another one of our projects with a boat out of Vinyl Haven that had the misfortune of hitting one of the ledges off Vinyl Haven at like 20 knots. She went down, but we hauled her up here. We had to refabricate 15 feet of the keel, rebuild the pilot house, repower it, put new, everything was gone. And when she went out, she surveyed out equally in the condition of a new construction. So that was a challenge. Yes,
I remember that one.
Yeah,
that was port side that she hit, wasn't it? That was where most of the damage was.
Yeah, port side, and actually the keel took the blunt of it. But
right.
Yeah, but a lot of damage on the port side was when they were trying to pick her off the bottom. Once she showed herself at the surface, I guess she didn't like the fresh air, so she went back down, and she landed in the rock pile again. Oh. So that's beat the port side up.
Whose hull was that?
I may be wrong, but I think it was the South Shore.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's the South Shore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've had a great deal of variety.
Yeah, but that's what keeps it interesting, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it does. Yeah. So, and with the help of the crew and all.
Now, what was interesting to me was that you didn't own one of the boats you built. For years and years, you had a Rice Brothers boat.
Yeah, I always joked around, said I couldn't afford one of my own boats, so I had a 1908 Rice Brothers.
Right.
So that took care of that.
But that's because you knew the person. I remember doing the article on it, but you knew the owner of the boat, and he left it to you, right?
Correct. Yes. And
what was his name?
Dr. Harold Mott Smith, Jr. He was. Great man, great guy, very intelligent naturally. He associated, you can imagine, when Oppenheimer was developing the bomb, he was in that group.
Right.
And but anyway, yeah, he was only the second owner of that boat, and he kept it for years. And I was basically his caretaker from the 60s, early 60s, on that project. And Burnham and Shue actually did it for a couple of years, but they preferred that I take it over. And so my family enjoyed it from early 90s right up through until a couple of years ago we donated it to the Bath Museum.
Right. Yeah, it's a very interesting boat.
Yes, it was. Believe it or not, it was only 27 feet long, less than a 6-foot beam, and he and Dr. Mott Smith actually cruised all up through Nova Scotia, all up through and down, and he went into the Carolinas, and he went up as far as Albany, New York in it. His family's sister lived in Burn Hills, so it wasn't too far away. So, and I don't know just where it was, but somewhere up in Nova Scotia, he was actually up in one of the smaller rivers, but it was still where they had a tremendous tide fall. He said he and his friend woke up in the morning and went into town, got a few groceries, and he said when he went back aboard, all the townsfolk were lined up on this bridge, and they were looking upriver where he was. So he didn't think anything of it. He cast off, and soon he left the mooring. He went out into the main channel. He said, I knew why they were watching. There's about a 12-knot current right there. He said, we went under that bridge at whatever, 12 knots. He said everybody was cheering when we came out on the other side because they didn't think he'd make it. So they did. So. Well,
he knew how to handle a boat.
Oh, he did. Yeah. And it was all charts, no electronics, no everything. I even found a lead weight with candle wax in the bottom of it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The
so
old wet method.
He did his own soundings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So now my wife and myself and, well, I guess crew, whatever, have been very fortunate to been able to survive here in Maine and do basically what we wanted. So, yeah. So.
And it looks like it's not going to end.
Yeah. So it's. I guess we'll keep going a while. Yep.